Hello, everyone, and welcome to this series of discussions with NGO entrepreneurs. Through these discussions, I want to get to know the people behind the change, the people truly making an impact. I would dare to say that not all NGOs do what they say they will do. And oftentimes, patrons and people wonder if their contribution actually goes to where they think it will go. So I'm dedicating this series to the real heroes, their organizations, and their philanthropic work. As an NGO entrepreneur myself, I know firsthand the challenges and the victories throughout the journey. And I hope these conversations help shed light on the impact and the important work of NGO entrepreneurs. So for today, I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Elfenbein, founder of Sistergood. Elizabeth is a social innovator who lives to make an impact in our world. As a changemaker, internationally award-winning branding expert, and storyteller, she is passionate about recognizing unmet needs and works tirelessly to build innovative solutions that change lives. With a strong focus on serving women and the aging population, Elizabeth is dedicated to developing ideas, experiences, and building companies that make a social impact. Elizabeth's mission is to inspire and empower others to embrace innovation, inclusivity, and social responsibility in their work and lives. Elizabeth started Sistergood in 2023. Sistergood is a not-for-profit organization building sisterhoods in developing countries. The purpose of Sistergood is to provide facilitated learning, taking women through self-discovery, self-care, and self-expression, and equipping women with strategies, skills, and tools to strengthen their physical and mental well-being. Their mission is to help change the world by building sister leaders and sisterhoods everywhere. Welcome, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. Great to see you again.
Thank you for having me, and I'm so excited to talk about Sistergood.
Yeah, so let's begin. What was your inspiration to start Sistergood?
Wow. So it happened. This is an interesting question. And first, I want to step back and just say, Amy, thank you so much for having me. I think what you're doing in terms of highlighting NGOs is so important because they often go and create this change that doesn't necessarily get seen. So thank you for that. In terms of inspiration and my source, with Sistergood, it happened incredibly organically, which is, usually I have a plan and things just sort of happen. But it was a beautiful thing. We had a launch party for Under the Sisterhood, our social impact company for women. And during the launch party, it was really interesting. Part of the event was creating this sister circle and having a number of women ask prompts and questions. And what we found was we had an audience of about 50 women from around the world. They were so excited to share their stories, their feelings, their experiences in this safe space. And so as we came to a close, and it was hard because they didn't want to stop talking, it occurred to me that there's something really sacred in this sisterhood. And at the same time, and I mean, I think this is kind of unusual, we got a message like a few weeks earlier from a young woman from Pakistan named Mohira Ikhtar, and Mohira reached out, and her message was, I love what you're doing with Under the Sisterhood. I'd like to become part of your team. And we are an intergenerational company. We are, of course, multicultural. We're global. And so I thought, okay, great. Let's connect. Let's have a call. And so we set up a Zoom. And the first thing, I mean, she was so intelligent, 18 years old. I was like blown away by her intelligence, her emotional intelligence, her IQ and her EQ was extraordinary. And so I said to her, well, why don't we do a podcast? Why don't we hear your story? Because we were at the time finding out what it means to be a woman in today's world. And so she shared her story. And at the end of our podcast, we closed. And I said to her, what would you like to join the team? What can you bring to the team? So you can join our board of advisors, because I want our board of advisors to represent the actual women we're serving. What can you do? Like, what can you offer? And so I said, why don't you go away for a couple of weeks, come back and tell me what you want to do, what you think you could do. So 2 weeks later, we had a follow-up Zoom call, and she said, I can create community. I can create sisterhood. I said, okay, that sounds great. So I said, why don't you go out? And she went into her high school, or whatever that term is in Pakistan, and she got 18 young women from ages 15 to 18 to sign up for a 4-week program, a sisterhood program. And at the time, because I really wanted this to be about her owning it and leading it, with, of course, Amy as our facilitator, and our head of programming at the time before we formed Sistergood. And so I said to Mohira, I said, do you think that it should be free or that they should pay for it? And she said, I think they should pay for it because they'll value it more. I said, okay, well, we'll take whatever you recommend that they pay. We will donate it to a cause of your choice for women in Pakistan. So immediately, prior to even having Sistergood, our organization was giving back and showing the power of coming in, affecting change in your community, and then the evergreen sort of the as Amy would say, the ripple effect, which was just a beautiful thing. So that's when, so we did 4 weeks with these young women. They loved it. At the same time as those 4 weeks happened, we were progressing at Under the Sisterhood, creating programming around this notion of a 12-week journey. And so really it was the impetus, the inspiration was the combination of the sister circle we had at our launch event with Mohira reaching out and recognizing that these women in developing countries could really utilize this sort of wellness programming in a different kind of way. And that could be really helpful to their individual and collective growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Great. I love that organic experience. I know the story well, but I love to hear it. And it's incredible how these things do come together and how it propels us forward and the impact that planting one seed does have and so many other lives. And yes, I do love the ripple effect and the power of it. And we just never know sometimes what we're doing, how it continues to go on and on. So tell us a little bit about the programming for Sistergood now that started. That was end of 2022, 2023.
Yeah. So we met and started that programming. I think it was October. So we launched Under the Sisterhood in August 2022. I think it was at the end of October, beginning of November that we started in Pakistan before we formed Sistergood. At the same time as all of this was going on, we were developing programming for Under the Sisterhood, and we recognized that we had to do something different. And so I had personally been on a certain journey, my own wellness journey. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we take women through this experience and, a timed journey, if you will. And there were 4 pillars that stood out to me. And I was really struck by self-discovery, self-care, self-expression, and sisterhood. I was really struck by in self-discovery, while we're gaining self-awareness and self-esteem and embodiment and really learning about selves, that if women aren't and don't feel good about themselves, there's no way they're going to lift the next sister. And so it's been really important to me as we developed Under the Sisterhood and then Sistergood is it's all about supporting the next woman. And so you can't do that if it starts with you and how you feel about yourself. And so I have these 4 pillars, this idea of let's go on this journey. And, I don't want to embarrass Amy or anything, but, Amy is our head of programming. I'm like, Amy, I have something, like, let's collaborate. And Amy built out the curriculum with me. Really, I knew. What?
That's me.
That's her. Yeah.
It's not a different Amy.
Yeah, no, it's the same Amy.
Yeah.
I think what's amazing is that it just all happened organically. Amy, I have this idea. I think it's going to be salient for women around the world. It'll be good for corporations. It'll be good in universities. It'll be good for women in developing countries. So we pursued all of these avenues. What we found was that it really took hold in developing countries. And so I said to Amy, because when we started building out, and she was building out Amy as in our Amy,
you can just speak to me. Yeah. I don't have to speak about me in third person.
I mean, I think it's really important to note that, I had this idea and this vision that this journey could really help women. The younger you are, the more you get out of it, you could affect change in your own life at a really critical phase. So as I said, self-discovery, knowing who you are, embodiment, self-acceptance, self-love, going into self-care. There's 8 different modalities of self-care, from everything from the physical, the mental, the emotional, but environmental, all these, the social, all these different ways to put our oxygen masks on and like recognize if we can't do for others, if we can't do for ourselves. Moving into self-expression, recognizing that how do we give women a voice? How do we give ourselves a voice? Is it a voice? There's verbal. It's how we show up physically. It's how we show up verbally, and how we learn to have that voice and use it. And then as we go into sisterhood, really role modeling active and generous listening, really understanding, in role modeling certain behaviors, the impact that we're going to have on the collective. Back to, as you would say, the ripple effect, the power of the ripple effect. When we show up a certain way, we don't recognize the effects we're having. And I can cite one great example. When my daughters were younger, in particular, my middle child, my second daughter, Georgia, we had, whether it was high school or whether it was college, everybody came through our house. She went to school about 40 minutes away. And, I always welcomed everybody. And these young women are still in my life today. She's 30 years old. They're still in my life. They still look at role modeling and how I've impacted their lives. So we just go about doing the things we do naturally. But if we do them well, with sensitivity and love and all those good things and the right intentions, the power is magnificent. So we built out, and Amy and I have really, you and I have really thought about how to do this and holding this safe space. So it's 12 hours, so an hour a week for 12 weeks. It's a beautiful thing. Our last week, and interestingly, I'll give you an example. We are just closing this Saturday our experience with women in Liberia. And we will have a closing ceremony, and Amy will do a special offering then, and of course, certain prompts. And what's been really fascinating with this programming, just to get a little more specific, is when you go into different countries have different capacity or capabilities. So for instance, a great example would be all the women in Ghana, and there were 24 women on a given day. There could be 20, there could be 18, but 24 women signed up. And of those 24 women, they were mostly, all of them had their own mobile devices or computers. So they would show up into the virtual space independent of each other. When we went to Liberia, it's different circumstance. They gather in one place, they sit in a semicircle in rows of chairs, and then they get to speak and have an opportunity to come up, sit in a chair, and be front and center, and feel seen, heard, and celebrated. I think across all of the work we've done, whether it's Pakistan, Ghana, and now Liberia, while their circumstances are very different, the one universal thing I would say is that each of them loves being seen, heard, and celebrated. It's almost like it's the first time that someone's listening to them. And it doesn't matter. It's fascinating, because you'd think that they would just want the women in their own countries. They love the fact that they are being acknowledged and celebrated by women from other cultures. It's so beautiful. It's so profound. I mean, yes, we can check off all the boxes. We've done this from a wellness. We've done that. We've educated them. We've given them we've given them tools and strategies to move forward. But I think what's been just fascinating, and for me personally, I leave every call, every session with my cup overflowing. I feel like my heart and soul are just feeling so vibrant and good, because we are watching every single session that Amy facilitates in the space she holds. We are listening, seeing, and hearing these incredible women. So that is the program. Right now, we offer the 12-week program, and we also have a mentorship program. And the mentorship program, Amy yourself had created, was really to give a guide. We have a very specific parameters. Right now, our mentors are our board members, and Amy, our executive director, is a mentor, and we invite women in to mentor, but it's a commitment. I think it's a 6-month commitment, a certain amount of hours. And then we have a certain rigor and guide to how we're going to take them through a journey so that they get what they need to move forward with their life. And I do want to comment because I think what's extraordinary, actually, maybe I'll comment to this in the next question, but I think right now that those are the things that are really active in our programming.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Our 12-week series and our mentorship program is our main focus at the moment. And so through this process of founding, and this is your first time of starting up a non-for-profit, what are some of the challenges you have felt along the way?
Well, thank you for asking these questions. A couple of things have struck me, and you know, well, first of all, like when you're bootstrapping companies, you have to be really careful. So, I could have gone sooner with the 501(c)(3). I didn't realize it was going to be easier. It seemed like really difficult. So I think that, you know, if I were to do it again, I would just get on it very quickly in terms of relying on someone else to process it. Because once the paperwork got in, it happened and it was very smooth. The reason why I bring that up is because while we were trying to get our 501(c)(3), which didn't take long once we sent in the paperwork, we had to have a fiscal sponsor to do fundraising, and that's complicated. And it's complicated for a number of reasons. First of all, you have all the different exchanges, the paperwork, or what have you. But more importantly, I think that it really impacted potentially the way we were able to fundraise because people didn't know where the money was going. So I think it might have made things a little confusing. So we were able to get my personal network of people to donate. But when you think of beyond, and so the other thing is, I think that like starting up an NGO, a couple of other things I would say is we're not, until you get into the PayPal Giving Fund, which we are of course now on, we're getting onto the Benevity platform. But until you're on these platforms that really recognize you as a legitimate, credentialized NGO, it's very hard to get ancillary donations. Even if you have the greatest campaign, even if you have a really cool GoFundMe experience that shows like you're doing something really magnificent. It's like, why aren't we getting more donations? So I think that has really been the biggest challenge. And one last thing I want to point out, it is no easy task to actually get into these communities and get in and find a leader who will champion what we're doing and stand it up. We are so fortunate to have a woman, Dr. Barbara Enswa, who joined our board, who got us into Ghana, and who got us into Liberia, and who our next is Uganda, based on her relationships. But without her getting in there and being seen by those different organizations and communities, it's really challenging. So we're very fortunate because we focus on two things, but there have been challenges.
Yeah, it's developing the partnerships, getting going in the beginning and showing what you're here to do. And then people, it takes time to get people's support, definitely. So what would you say on the flip side? Because every time that we have a challenge, we get to have a victory after, right? We get through the challenge and then there's a victory. So what would you say have been some of your victories and Sistergood's victories over this past year and a half?
Well, I mean, yeah, no, I think there were a lot of victories, even though those things were challenging. I think our victories are, first of all, we have a great team. I don't want to embarrass you, but I just think that you hold beautiful space. Like it starts with the right people. If you don't have the people who really embrace the vision and really feel it, like I am a very feeling into it, particularly with an NGO. It's something that has to be like in your DNA and blood that you are passionate about. And so I feel very fortunate to have you as our executive director and, leading that, and so much trust. I know witnessing you in spaces. And I think it's really important to highlight this because this is what makes these women, regardless if it's Paula from Liberia at age 10 or 11, opening up and wanting to share, is them feeling they're in a safe space. So I think that that's a huge victory, is that right there, I feel like I have the right executive director. In terms of we're building out our board, we have two things we're focusing on: fundraising and community. The fundraising supports the building of the communities, and we can get in more. And I feel so much gratitude for the introduction from Anne Marie to Dr. Barbara Enswa, because she brings us into her connections. We are sharing our story. We have a great, I don't want to call it a pitch deck, we're an NGO, but you have to have a pitch deck. Like, we have a great story to share. We're getting really wonderful results and profound commentary from the women themselves. Very, very thankful and so much gratitude to have this programming. And it's programming they haven't seen before. And so I'm really proud of that. That's a victory. So when you're speaking to Dr. Barbara Enswa, who is a family medicine physician in US and in Ghana, and she does medical missions, she said, we've never seen any programming like this 12-week journey. It is so unique. And so to hear that and to know and to validate what we felt in our hearts. And of course, we've had psychologists go through, endorse, and evaluate our programming, but to see it out in the real world affecting lives is just, it's wonderful. And so I feel that's a huge victory. Another huge victory is we're going to have finished on Saturday, our third. So we've impacted over 60 women in 3 countries, Pakistan, Ghana, Liberia. In June, we hope that we're standing up the one in Uganda. It's not about whether we are, it's just about when. We had a wonderful call with Uganda Outreach and the leader of that. And she's like, I love the programming. So, there's some things that we have to figure out. So one thing that's really interesting is, in terms of Wi-Fi access, do they have their own mobile devices? So for instance, in northern Uganda, in southern Uganda, there's a difference in terms of remoteness, what they have access to. Do they have to do it like in Liberia at a church or in a community space? Or, are they doing it individually and independently? And really looking into the pluses and minuses of which is the first one they start, because maybe they do multiple in different parts of Uganda. And so I think the victories have been the lives we've touched. One thing I want to say, Sistergood is the NGO. It's our not-for-profit arm of Under the Sisterhood. And the only reason why I mention that is because we have these incredible monthly Under the Hood events. And we've had many women. Some of the Pakistani young women came initially. They're off, they're into school, they're going off to university now, so they're less involved. However, the women in Ghana who are nurses and midwives and in university, they're attending our sessions, they're attending our free movement classes, all these different things. So the impact, making things more accessible to them, more broadly accessible, has been spectacular, and letting them know, hey, you're welcome, join, here's the invite. So they're on our mailing list. And so really, the effect, not just in the moment, but the effect after. And then I think what we've done, which is really wonderful, is, and I was thinking about this, is the reunions we have. So during, Women's History Month, we brought the women from Ghana and Pakistan together. We did not have a turnout from Pakistan, unfortunately, but we did have our group from Ghana. And so really continuing to bring women together and to celebrate them.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a great year. It has been we've gathered that momentum. And I have to agree, we have a great board of directors, and Dr. Barbara was on last week. So we had a chance to talk, and she's just wonderful with all the work that she's been doing and what she's been contributing to Sistergood. And it really has made a difference in being able to, she's made that difference for us in being able to develop the partnerships in other regions. And yeah, hopefully we'll just continue to keep expanding from there. So let's just share a little bit about now what we have coming up, and what are some of our needs as we look forward towards our bigger vision. I know you and I have talked about things of, education and expanding that in certain ways, but also just how many more communities we can start serving with more programming and mentorship. So just talk a little bit about what are some of our needs, and what do you foresee for, maybe the next year and a half?
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, I mean, we're going to continue. I think that Africa has clearly, we want to proliferate Africa. We want to get into every part of it. So we are looking at Sierra Leone. We're looking at Nigeria. we are active in active conversations with Uganda. So I'm really excited about that. And we want to continue. We're also talking to communities in South Africa, to mining communities to support women. But we would like to go to Southeast Asia. We would like to go around the world. The thing I want to say is that there's a lot of developing cities in the United States that could really use the support, where the women don't have the opportunities. And so we don't want to forget that. However, we have been on a mission with developing countries to really reach broadly and be global. But we are open, of course, with the right opportunities, the right needs to go into communities, to our local communities in the United States. So my hope is, right now we have funding for about another 4, but my hope is through the end of the year that it becomes 6 and 10, and that we get the fundraising in. So we will be, of course, very actively fundraising. We will look in November. Thanksgiving's a big time for donations where companies are matching them. We are going to be in the Benevity platform with Google, so that's exciting. We're in the process of waiting to hear back from them, but they have signed us up. So we want to get into more platforms like Benevity, where organizations will support this and support, women around the world and, really their wellness. In terms of building out the programming, I think that, Amy and I talked about taking it from 12 weeks to 24 weeks to, if we have a community that's really thriving and we have the funds needed, because right now, we're funding things more on a contractor base versus building out a staff, if you will. And so with the right funding, we would be able to build that out. And we would be able to say to, for instance, to Winston, who's the leader in the Liberia community, to say, Winston, we would like to keep this going because it's serving these women beautifully. So imagine that we build out, we have the 12-week, which is the core, the foundation, and then we build out Sisterhood, and we continue to develop the programming around, like, leaning into what's going on in the room, what the dynamics are, how do we continue to foster this collaboration, the role playing. So we're continuing. It's not like a continuous loop, I don't want to say, but you want to go back and remind the communities of the different things they've learned, and hold them accountable to that and continue to build it.
Well,
And
I think the continuation is really important, that we've invested 12 weeks and brought women together. They start to become quite close as well, and that they start to progress, to a certain point. And so continuing that, deepening that, progressing on that first series is really important.
yeah, you know what? I couldn't agree more. And I would say from a year and a half, from a vision perspective, is like that you are really taking it over, like that it becomes, whether it's a full-time thing or a part-time thing, where it's funded in a larger way, because it's very bootstrappy right now. We're getting there, we're growing, and it will continue to grow. But I'm really committed to getting more and more countries on board. And then, interestingly, Dr. Enswa, Barbara, also suggested, and Amy and I actually had started developing this in the beginning, that we create a guide where it could be given out to the community leader in that. So for instance, whether it's Winston or the pastor's wife in that particular community, so she could go out and create the next one and the next one. So we're offering the ability so that it could live evergreen without us always having to be in the room. Part of me wants us to always be in the room, because I think that there's an exchange there that happens that's beautiful when you get multiple cultures together. There's just it's a sisterly love. And so I think that's really important. I don't want to lose the heart and soul. But I would imagine the continued growth, and then a really robust mentorship program, so that these women feel, regardless of where they are in their life, that they have someone, a go-to, can help guide them, whether it's professional guidance, education, ways they can go about things, even dealing with dynamics that are going on in home environments where they're perplexed and might not have the ability. I don't want to call us counselors, but really,
No, we're not counselors. But the mentorship program is already proving to be really successful and really having a great impact on both the mentees and the mentors. And it's been it's been really wonderful to witness and be a part of. And so I think developing that further is something that will be a big part of our program, especially as we continue to meet other communities. We bring other communities together, and the reunions are really fun to bring everyone together throughout the reunion is so
Well,
important.
that, it's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking about that one question. And I would say that next year on during Women's History Month, which will be International Women's Day, it's typically on March 8th,
Mhm.
that we have a reunion for all the countries that we've had programming for and bring all the women together, because imagine we're creating this global sisterhood where they have the ability to connect with each other. And
Mhm.
so instead of just feeling that it's only focused on a local level, imagine it being on a global level. And it's amazing the way like a simple conversation can touch a life. You don't realize, one doesn't realize the impact that just saying a few things can be or mean, or someone feeling seen and heard. And I think, I do want to cite one example, or one, with the women in Liberia, it's been just the whole thing has been utterly spectacular. I would call it splendid, the feeling I feel. But what I would say is, and Amy, I don't want to speak for you, but there's a chair in Liberia. They sit in rows. Sometimes they're in semicircles, and then there's a chair in the center. And the chair, because they have a computer, and so it's the one person can be seen. But every time, at least they get seen, heard, acknowledged, and celebrated at least once, if not 3 times, throughout the hour call. So, I mean, some of these women have never been seen or heard or asked what they thought about anything. So they are witnessed in a way that gives them confidence in a way to speak up. And so, you don't think about it when, I don't want to say you, not you, I mean, the universe, we don't recognize the impact that these simple gestures have. Like, I mean, I know how I feel myself being seen and heard and how it matters to me. And so if we're teaching these women that they have a right and deserve to be seen, heard, and acknowledged and celebrated, that what they think, feel, and all of that matters, we're doing something pretty magical. And then, building that sense of belonging by creating that community.
Yeah, yeah, it's been really sweet to see them open up and share and feel their confidence grow in that. Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today with me. This was really great to chat with you in this way. And I'm going to put all of the information about Sistergood down below so you can find more about the programming of Sistergood and donate if you feel, or if you have something else that you feel you could offer to the organization. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Amy. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.